Hi, Dr. Brian McGee, physical therapist with Rexercise. Do you have stiff hips? Are you an athlete? This hip mobility program will help improve your performance, prevent injury, and get you back to doing what you love to do. In this video, I'll go through my top 6 hip mobility exercises for athletes. A simple, quick program that can easily be incorporated into a pre-workout, pre-practice, or pre-game warm-up, and will improve the entire scope of hip mobility: forward, backward, in, out, and rotation. I see a lot of patients that are athletes in a variety of sports with a variety of leg injuries: ACL tears, hip labral tears, hip tendonitis, Achilles tendonitis. During their recovery, regardless of injury, they always lose some hip mobility. And I find that hip mobility is often overlooked. You know, we tend to stretch our ankles, we stretch our hamstrings, we tend not to work on our hip. And hip mobility is super important in all sports for both performance and injury prevention. And it's absolutely essential in certain sports and certain positions. Catchers, for example, think of the hip mobility that catchers need. I see a lot of baseball players, and I've learned that catchers can't have enough hip mobility. And not just catchers. MMA fighters, I've seen some of them. Wrestlers obviously need a ton of hip mobility. Football defensive backs, football linemen. You know, think of staying in their stance, or a defensive back having to pivot to stay in front of their opponent. Also, track athletes, pole vaulters, high jumpers, the list goes on and on. Hip mobility is huge for sports performance and injury prevention, and this program helps with both. So the first exercise I call the windshield wiper. So sitting on the ground, on the floor, each knee bent approximately 90 degrees, and you're simply going to rotate back and forth. Now the beginner version is the hands go with you, okay? You can also internally rotate the back hip as you go back and forth. Now the slightly more advanced version is the no hand version. And then, especially for the catchers, there's the hip raise version. Back and forth, 20 times. You can tell I'm no catcher. Before I start the next exercise, I want to remind everybody, if this content is helpful for you, click those like buttons, those subscribe buttons. Also, any comments you have, I'd be curious to read, especially anything that has to do with your athletic performance as it relates to hip mobility, and any follow-on videos that might be useful for you, let me know in the comments. The next exercise, we're stretching the front of the hip and a specific muscle called the rectus femoris muscle, which is a 2-joint muscle that crosses the hip and the knee, so we have to move both joints to get a stretch. So foot up on, in this case, a stability ball. Could be a bench. Hey, buddy. Could be a chair. Okay, up tall in the spine. You have to clench your butt muscle. Hey, man, you're doing great. Clench your butt muscle to kind of tilt your pelvis, and then reach over to the other side. Hold for a moment. Come back. Hey, you're doing great. We're going to do 10 times per side. Hey, how you doing, man? Are you stretching too? Good job. Okay, we're doing good. Couple more, okay? The next exercise I call the scorpion. Laying flat on your stomach, knee bent 90 degrees, hands out. Simply reach up and over to the right hand, foot, back and forth, times per side. Okay, the next exercise I call the fire hydrant, after Finn here, right, buddy? You know this one. So this is, again, working on hip rotation and extension. So on the hands and knees, you're simply going to make as big a circle as you can make with your hip. Come back to the starting point, keeping the knee bent clockwise, then counterclockwise. 10 times per side, big circles. Right, buddy? You're doing great. Okay, the next exercise is particularly relevant to the catcher. So we're going to do a side-to-side lunge, and this is a pretty tough one. So you'll probably need some external support. For the baseball players, a baseball bat works great. Stability ball or bench works okay. So you're going to lunge way over to one side, maximum knee bend. The opposite side hip, we're going to rotate up and down 90 degrees a couple times. Then we're simply going to go to the other side, rotate the opposite side hip 90 degrees a couple times, back and forth. Now the real advanced version is the no hand version, which I cannot do. Back and forth, 10 per side. Okay, the last one. Doing great, buddy. Some call this the world's greatest stretch, but I'm putting it in combination with just a deep squat. Again, with the catchers in the audience, obviously have to be in a squatted position pretty much the whole game. But even other athletes as well, we tend not to work on end range knee flexion. That's part of the point of the squat. So start off in this deep squat, hands to the ground, one leg back, reach to the sky with one arm, high as you can. Look at the hand, don't look down. Look up at the hand, you'll get more rotation in the spine. And then switch. Again, looking at the hand. Then back to the squat for a moment, switch legs. So about 10 reaches total, or 5 times per side. Okay. Back and forth. So that's my hip mobility program for athletes. Again, my go-to 6 exercises for my athlete patients. These will help you get back to what you love to do. They'll help you prevent injury. Please like or subscribe. If you have comments about the program, I'd be curious to hear, and we'll see you in the next video.